Just start hitting me in the
Is
knees.
this his job?
Yeah.
Hold on.
He's waving at me.
Thank you.
There we go.
Hello. We'll go ahead and get our 25 June planning session working, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have two work sessions this evening. The first, we're very delighted to have representatives from the TPO's Freight Transportation Advisory Committee here. The chairman of that committee, Mr. Bell, Bill Bell, when he's not being the chairman of that committee, is the vice president with Newport News Shipbuilding. So he's a man that knows how to get stuff done. And our purpose tonight is to hear from them. Their topic is vitally important to all the communities in Hampton Roads, and this is part of our public outreach, both for you and for members of the community, to understand better the importance of freight and the issues that are facing freight in Hampton Roads. With that, Mr. Bell, if you welcome, and please introduce your team members if you'd like.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'll get to my teammates in just a minute. But what I wanted to start with is it's no surprise to anybody here how complex the transportation issue is. And by federal law, what happens is the Hampton Roads Transportation Planning Organization is the organization charged with looking at and deciding what projects need to go, what studies need to go, and they're comprised of 13 localities. What happens, though, is that with no offense to public officials, the TPO is the city managers or their designee and a member of councils of those 13 areas, and along with, like Thelma Drake, with the Rail Association, you have VDOT there. You've got a lot of interested parties. There's 4 members of the General Assembly on the TPO, and there's a lot of good, hard-working folks on that. The group that I'm privileged to work with is the Freight Transportation Advisory Committee. And we like to think of ourselves kind of as the business input to that TPO process. Because if you look at the members, and I'm fortunate enough to have a number of them here, Robert Barclay, my co-chair, he hails from Suffolk. He's an attorney out of Suffolk. He's not able to be here tonight, but Butch Crane with K-Line America, I saw Butch come in. Butch is over here. Ron Drogan with Cross Global Group, I don't think he made it tonight. I've got Keith Helton here with Givens Transportation to my immediate right, Chris Lubers with Norfolk Southern, Rick Morris with Cannon, Virginia, on the other side of Keith there, and Art Moy with the Virginia Maritime Association. And we have 2 missions at the Freight Transportation Advisory Committee, and that is to advise the TPO on matters involving freight. And the good news is if you look at our membership, we really have 2 sets of business folks on it. We have the movers of freight, and we have 2 big users of freight. And I'll talk a little bit more about what Newport News Shipbuilding has used in freight and continues to do with freight over time. So we have a twofold mission. One is to provide information to the TPO on recommendations. The second is to do public outreach and to try to get more folks understanding and interested in what is going on with the transportation infrastructure in the Hampton Roads region. So we have one of the center points is we introduced a video at the first Virginia Freight Transportation Summit that we actually hosted in December, and it happened to be in Norfolk, and it was on the front side of the Governor's Transportation Summit. So let me roll this video, if that's okay, and then it runs, well, I won't tell you how long it runs. You'll start keeping a clock on me.
There are no other harbors in the world like this one. It is the largest ice-free natural harbor on Earth. It's no wonder the first Europeans to maintain a permanent settlement in North America soon began to turn the Hampton Roads Harbor into a center for trade, commerce, and military strength. It's no wonder the harbor and its ports united the region. And over the course of 400 years, It has grown into a conduit for trade and economic growth for the state, the region, and the nation. And it's no wonder that the land transportation network around the harbor grew in scale and complexity and continues to grow, playing a pivotal role in moving the people and the freight that make our regional and our state economy hum. Nor is it any wonder that this world-class harbor is home to the largest naval base in the world, or that employment opportunities are strong and stable, or that the beaches and historic sites have created a dynamic tourist industry. It's no wonder that people in the Hampton Roads region enjoy prosperity and a quality of life that ranks among the highest in the nation. But there is something to wonder about. How can we continue to grow? Our transportation infrastructure presents us with a challenge. Over 1 million people live in Hampton Roads, and along with thousands of visitors, they commute over our bridges and through our tunnels every day. Put it all together, and our good fortune can mean massive congestion. The simple fact is that our existing roads are not adequate to meet our growing needs, and we are growing, and that means jammed highways will only get worse, and that would slow more than just traffic. Snarled traffic impedes the movement of freight and people, which limits the economic possibilities for our amazing harbor, which limits our ability to grow, directly impacting the costs we pay for the products we use every day. Transportation ease and efficiency influences industry decisions about where to locate, making infrastructure an important part of the region's planning and development. In a state where 50% of the economy relies on the ability to be mobile, connecting with a country where moving freight creates 10 million jobs. In a global economy that absolutely depends on efficient freight transport, it only makes sense to invest in transportation and increase our competitive edge.
Hampton Roads is a particularly challenging area when you start talking about transportation because there's bridges, there's tunnels. What makes us so unique as a region makes it cost significantly more to build transportation infrastructure. Our cost to build transportation infrastructure in Hampton Roads is 15 times more than any other place in Virginia. There are a lot of good people working on this. There are a lot of good ideas. But the fact is there is no silver bullet. It's going to require a lot of coordination among a lot of people. In order to get there, we must act as a united region.
Our opportunity to grow is real because the economy continues to globalize, which means practically everything we need to make life good, to make life better, and sometimes even to make life possible, even for people who don't drive, depends on the efficient movement of freight. The import-export traffic moving through Hampton Roads stands to grow. With the widening of the Panama Canal, more and bigger ships will call at the Port of Virginia. That's good for our economy, across the region and the state. Building the bridges and tunnels we need costs 15 times more than building surface roads. The very things that make this region great, the harbor, the port, the beaches, also make construction more costly. So, it is going to take a united effort to fund improvements to our transportation infrastructure.
It may take tolls. It may take taxes. It will take political courage and voter support.
When you consider the jobs we keep and the new opportunities we can make possible, this investment is crucial. The world-class harbor that has given us 400 years of growth continues to offer us a world-class opportunity to sustain growth. It's an opportunity that will require world-class vision and unity of purpose. A region united can make it happen. A region united can bring us growth. A region united is our key to the future. Together, let's keep the region strong.
So we felt pretty strongly about having a united region to try to address the transportation infrastructure problems. What I thought I'd do is talk just for a moment about why transportation is important and critical, and that is because if we want to stay the way we are, then we should continue to do exactly what we've been doing. If we want to improve the quality of life, if we want to do some things to make sure business can continue to do what we need it to do, we just have to face reality. Now, the fact is that the Hampton Roads TPO, or the TPO, their primary job is to do all kinds of great studies. But the first and foremost thing they do is they create a long-range strategic plan. This is the long-range strategic plan that was just crafted by the TPO, and it was approved at their meeting, unanimously approved at their meeting in January of this year. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what this really does for us. Before this book ever becomes reality, they go to all the localities and everybody that's involved with that process, and they say, oh, what do we need? What do we need over the next 20-plus years to make this region successful? And to do this book, they got over 250 ideas of our region's best and brightest, saying, here's infrastructure, transportation improvements that we need to make. I've been on the road out here at rush hour, and I know that's one of the hot points here. Used to be, if I lived in Running Man. For me to go to Running Man to come down here to go to any of the stores, there's times you did it and there's times you didn't do it. All of that transportation infrastructure is critically important. That would have been in the plan, but what they ended up doing is taking all those 250 ideas, and they said, oh no, well, it's got to be affordable ideas. And so they went from 250 to 150. And then they said, okay, well, if we did all these 150 plans, how much is that really going to cost? Well, that would cost $30 billion to do 150 of the 250 plans. If you do those 150 plans, you go from about 12% per lane mile congestion, and in 2034, you're at about 24% per lane mile congestion. So you about double the congestion if you do all the things that ended up not being in here because I told you it's fiscally constrained. If you look at all the funding that is presently available from the state, that's $1.2 billion. All of us are business folks. We have interactions with different businesses. If you know you need $30 billion and you only got 1.2, you start looking, well, where else are you going to get the money? Well, it turns out that the money that the city of Poquoson contributes to infrastructure, cities of Hampton, and so on and so forth, you end up with more money. And then if you add the public-private partnerships plus all the money from tolls, you end up with $7.7 billion over the 20-year planning period. Still insufficient to do what the region's leaders and private industries have said, no, we really need to do that. It's insufficient. It's insufficient. So every time I talk about this, what folks say, they ask me two questions. I'll get to the second in a minute. The second is, Bill, why are you doing this? But the first question is, well, let's just put tolls. I used to go across the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel in the 60s and 70s, and it was $1.25. You throw your money in, you get across. So the question is, all right, well, what's it really take? Well, the fact is the first thing we have to understand is that it will take if we had all the money today, if you guys had all the money and you said, Bill, let's go build the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, it would take 12 years. The first car wouldn't run across any of the new spans for 12 years if we had all of that to go today. The second thing is it's about a $4 to $5 billion challenge. So if we said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to do tolls. Well, what the TPO and their staff said is, okay, how do you finance $1 billion worth of transportation? And this is all big money. I mean, and it is big money. But so for $1 billion, if you have 50,000 paying customers per day, it's $4.50 per car. It's higher for trucks, 3 times higher for trucks. Or you could do a regional gas tax of 9.6 cents. You could do a half a point on sales tax, or you could do some combination of all 3 of those. But that's for $1 billion, and I'm talking about just that one project's $4 to $5 billion, because the construction of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, or the third crossing, or the Patriots Crossing is not in this plan because it's fiscally constrained. The studies are, the environmental impact studies and those things, that's in there. So the challenge is that none of us get anything for free. And I went to the public hearings when we did the referendum. I guess that was 2002. When the House bill got passed in the 2007 timeframe, there were public hearings on should we do anything. And one of the things that I used to hear from are people who were retired on a fixed income, and they'd say, well, I'm retired and I can't afford it. It doesn't matter what it costs, I can't afford it. Well, the fact is that the trucks aren't going to run for free. The lettuce isn't grown in the back of the supermarket. The lettuce comes to the supermarket. And if the trucks are stuck in traffic and there's more wear and tear on the trucks and there's more time associated with it, as much as I like my friends in the trucking industry, they don't do it for free. Nobody does it for free. And their margins, they've assured me their margins are really pretty tight. So then what I want to do is talk about, well, what I've just delivered is pretty doomy and gloomy news, right? There's a recent study that came out of Charlottesville, UVA, that said, oh, well, telling people that the devil's at the door isn't working. And what we're doing is we're saying, hey, it doesn't work, right? And nobody trusts VDOT. VDOT's been audited more times than the shipyard, I think, and we get audited by everybody, and then they invite their cousins in to audit us. So the study suggests that what we really need to be doing is talking about transportation as here's something that we really ought to be doing. We ought to talk about it in a positive tone. We ought to talk about it as an investment. We ought to be talking about it as something for our future. We really ought to be talking about it as here's what we're going to do so that the future is bright. And I don't think any locality, as important and powerful as each of the localities are, I don't think we can do it by ourselves. I think we have to act together. Otherwise, I don't think we'll get there. So people say, Bill, you're spending a fair amount of time and attention. So what happens with Newport News Shipbuilding? I don't have to tell anybody in this room. We are Virginia's largest industrial employer. We have as of the end of last month, we had 21,600 and some employees. We're probably going to grow. We're going to hire over the next 3.5 years another 7,500 people. A lot of that's for attrition, so there won't be huge growth numbers, but we'll grow by another 1,000 or 2. When I asked and said, okay, well, where do people live who work at the shipyard? 27% live in Newport News, 23% live in Hampton. I have 6% living in Virginia Beach. I now have 6% living in Suffolk. I have 1,000 people coming and going to our shipyard every day from North Carolina. There's 382 citizens of Poquoson who work at our shipyard. What we found is that when we ranked the top 10 places where people came and went, 7 out of 10 of our employees had to cross one of these major bridges or tunnels to get to our place of employment. It's a quality of life issue. And it's not just for our employees. The fact is we've got somewhere between 3 and 10,000 sailors coming and going every day, depending on how many ships we have in, because as we start the construction of aircraft carriers and so on, as they progress, the sailors start populating and actually living on the ships. We've got contractors that come in. Over a 5-year spin nationwide, we spent somewhere north of $12 billion in goods and supplies that come here, mostly by truck. I think we had 52 rail car deliveries. I think we had 10 barges that came in, but most of it is truck. Most of it is, not all of it, but about 1,500 trucks a year come in with full trucks, and all the rest are partial trucks. So there's lots of our suppliers. And then if you look at Virginia and you say, well, gee, Bill, that's nice, you're spending all that money every place but Alaska, and I think we should find somebody in Alaska, but they got to have something we want. But then you start looking at Virginia, and the fact is in Virginia we spend almost about $3 billion on goods and services, and most of that is concentrated in the Hampton Roads region. And they get to us, the goods, the services, the supplies, they get to us over the transportation infrastructure. I believe it's a quality of life issue. Newport News Shipbuilding, I can be here because we're a big company and the numbers that I can talk about they're big. But the fact is that we're a business, and the fact is that everybody that's involved in business has the exact same problem we have. It's just a matter of scale. So, and I'm just fortunate that I have a little passion for this. I think that our employees deserve better. I think our sailors deserve better, and I think our suppliers deserve better. So that's why I do it. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have or suggestions, or if you want to talk a little bit about how we can continue trying to get the word out. This video is on the TPO website. It's also on a number of businesses' website. Some of the cities and counties have put a link on their website to the video. And
Questions?
Yeah, Bill, are you taking this to all the cities in the local area and the counties?
we have, I have been busy trying to get businesses interested in it, so I've briefed the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce. I've done the same thing for Portsmouth, Virginia Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. We have invited, much like we did here, we've invited ourselves to go to any council or county board that would like to hear us. And I think Butch and, did you go to Virginia Beach? I think they did Virginia Beach last week. Mayor Sessoms invited them out there, so.
And we're scheduled to do Chesapeake, City of Chesapeake as well. And our outreach program will start to talk to Rotary clubs next, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we ask is that when you talk to your friends and family and anybody that doesn't really understand the connection to transportation, cookies, candy, whatever you eat, buy, drink, comes by truck. Remind them of that. This ring of fire that you've heard about threatens our future as a growth area in Hampton Roads. And we think that investment in infrastructure is an investment in our future for our children and our children's children to have the same quality of life that we've all enjoyed these years. And this is kind of the message that we want to get across to people, not just to you folks, but to everybody that we know and talk to. It's going to take a lot of courage. We know that taxes is the third grade. Nobody wants to touch. But it's eventually going to have to come to some kind of arrangement, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a lot of help and a lot of. So we're sort of going to educate.
Yeah, there was a Virginia Pilot article. I collect newspaper clippings, and so if you want to see what the Daily Press said in the last couple of days, I'm sure you've read it, but I haven't. But the Virginia Pilot does the exact same thing. And
One other question, Bill. Did you and the other users and movers of freight in the local area have input relative to the prioritization of the various transportation projects?
we provided, we've been formed now for 2 years. And so during that 2-year time frame, what we did during the first probably 18 months is we tried to make sure we understood what the issue was. And our primary input to this prioritization tool that was used in here was twofold. One is that we needed to be looking at roadways as systems. If you'll pardon the expression, it's you don't want to move the pig up the snake but so far, because that's all you're doing is you're just moving the bottleneck someplace else. So we encouraged the TPO to look at each roadway as a system, because if all you're going to do is, if you're going to put another tunnel in, you're not going to do anything with 64 West, right, out here. What good is that? And so you really have to think about it as a system. So that was our first input. And our second input was we need to be looking at the economic impact. And we need to be thinking about it as an economic impact not only to businesses. I'm trying to hire folks. I don't know that in 5 years I'll be able to continue to hire people if the quality of life is terrible because they're stuck in traffic. But the second piece of that is, hey, where do we want to end up? So it's the economic vitality, it's the cost to the individual consumer. I think they did a study. I just saw a number that said it costs the average member of the region almost $700 a year in lost gas, wear and tear in the car, and so on, just sitting stuck in traffic. So those were our two primary things, and we were fortunate to get those in. They let us look at the prioritization list, but we didn't come down on, oh, you got to do Hampton Roads, Bridge Tunnel, or Third Crossing, because we thought it was more important to get the macro view involved in the process. Thank you, though. Good question.
Has there been an effort to move the emphasis at the state level? Because I think, that's where the real bottleneck, I think, has been, the political lack of will to do what's necessary to generate long-term financing for all the transportation needs. And since the major, at least one of the major contributors, sections that contribute to the economy of the state is right here, it's in the best interest of the state to see this thing solved.
Yes, sir. We've had opportunities to chat with the governor about it. We've talked to the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Connaughton. We have talked to various members of the House and Senate. So they know that. I don't think there's a challenge with knowing what the problem is. I think the challenge is saying, oh, yeah, we really need to do this. Yep. And so part of what the TPO is doing is they've formed a group of alliance called the Golden Crescent Alliance. I don't know if you've read anything about that, but what they're really trying to do with that group is they're trying to get that group to really start putting pressure, and it's mainly in the House. It's mostly on the House side.
Yeah.
So, and businesses are trying to do
sure.
that as well. So,
Anyone else? Well, we certainly do appreciate you coming out. Most interesting, and we are well aware that there's a transportation problem around here.
if you have any questions or suggestions, I'd love to get them. Anything that would be useful.
We'll certainly do that.
But thank you very much for letting us come out.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Do you need to set up? Are you ready? Oh, okay. Mighty glad you were with us. Good to meet you. Thanks for coming. Let me cut this thing off just a second.
We need to cue the
What
second
you want to do is help Northern Virginia.
Who can do that for us?
God, to hold bake sales to raise money to fight the. Yeah, that's it. There's no thing as a free lunch.
Back to Judy for me, please. Just add to the pile.
What is it? Golf course?
Golf carts.
You mind sitting there and running in front of the bill for me?
Me? I'm sure.
You don't mind? Good. Mr. Mayor, members of council, our second of two work sessions this evening pertains to our golf cart ordinance. This work session is on your agenda at the request of the mayor. He is seeking input from the council specifically with regard to whether or not there is a majority of council that is interested in moving forward to consider designation of golf cart roads under our ordinance, and if so, which roads specifically the council is interested in so that we can draft the appropriate resolutions or ordinances for your consideration at your next regular meeting. For council members are very familiar with this ordinance, but for those at home, Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and just summarize it real quick.
Please.
And then at that point, we'll answer any questions you may have, but we await your direction if there is any on this subject. To begin with, at the moment, there is no road, public road in the city of Poquoson that is designated for golf carts. Therefore, with the exception of certain city golf carts relating to certain special events, if you see a golf cart on a public street, it is in violation of the ordinance. Next, ordinance section 78-203 talks about the procedures by which the city council can designate a golf cart road. I won't read this entire thing to you, but essentially it can be designated by the city council after the council considers the speed, volume, and character of the motor vehicle traffic using the street, determining that the golf cart operation on a particular street or streets is compatible with state and local transportation plans and consistent with the Commonwealth's statewide pedestrian policy. They need to be 25-mile-an-hour speed limits, and so that's the process that you have to go through. So in the future, if there is an ordinance to be considered as part of that, you'll need to consider those things and make specific findings pursuant thereof. If you were to go ahead and designate a golf cart road or a series of roads, there are rules that must be followed under your ordinance. They largely mirror the state code. Briefly, as I said, golf cart roads have to be 25-mile-an-hour streets, meaning if it is higher than 25 mile an hour, golf carts are not permitted. Not allowed to cross a street that's not 25. Further, to operate legally a golf cart on a designated street, the person must be a licensed driver and have that license with them. 4, golf cart has to have the slow-moving vehicle placards on it. The golf cart must, if it's going to operate at night, have lights as well. And any person operating a golf cart, in addition to the other things, on a designated street must have $300,000 worth of accident insurance unless they get a waiver from the DMV commissioner for self-insurance, which is essentially the same thing. They're going to need to have insurance. They're going to need to be 16 years old. The vehicle needs to be marked and on 25-mile-an-hour streets that are designated. This topic has come to us most recently with some persons in the immediate vicinity of Rennes Road. I would say Greater Rennes Road, which is the section that you see on this map down towards the bottom, slightly off-center to the middle. You see a red circle. That's the intersection of Rennes Road and Poquoson Avenue. And then going north from there, we've shown you both Rennes Road and all the public roads that feed off of Rennes Road. If the council is desirous of considering this, we again need to know, A, that you are as a majority, and B, which roads specifically, so we can draft the appropriate ordinances for your consideration. With that, we're here to answer any questions. But in the end, we'd like to know the pleasure of the council, please.
So, Randy, just so I'm clear, I know I've asked this question at least 5 times. We have to designate the street by name, is that correct? We could not say,
Why is that?
we cannot say any street in Poquoson that has 25 miles an hour.
No.
Even if we reviewed all the 25-mile-an-hour streets?
If you review them all, if you name them all, I mean, what we have is a mirror image of the state statute. At the time we passed this, we mirrored right through the state statute, what the state law said you had to do. So you need to list each street that will permit a golf cart. And
Why do you say that? What,
Because-
I've heard you, but I don't understand.
Because the state law tells us how to do it.
Where, in this section that
That's
you gave me?
our law. And our law mirrors the state law. If you look at the first section, it says, pursuant to section 46.2, 916.2 of the Code of Virginia, City Council may authorize by ordinance the operation of golf carts on designated public streets within the city.
Can
In
we
order
de-
to be a designated public street, I think it has to have a name. Now, if there's another way of designating it,
I would like to designate everything 25 miles
When we
per hour.
first voted on this, however many years ago it was, we said we didn't want to get into naming every street. We just said if it had a speed limit of 25 miles an hour, you could operate the cart.
I know what we said.
But now
what
you're saying that's not legal.
No, what we did was the way it has to be done to comply with the state law that gives us the authority to do it. Okay. So I understand what you intended to do, and I understand what everybody wanted to do,
Right.
but the state requires us to do it in a particular way because the state has the overall jurisdiction over operating vehicles on state highways.
All right, so if, let's say that the staff brought to us a list of every road in Poquoson that's 25 miles per hour, and we went through and said, yes, we want all of those streets designated, we could do that.
As long as you made the findings as called for here, that you considered the speed, volume, and character of motor vehicle traffic, determined that golf cart operation on a particular street is compatible with state transportation policy, and that the operation of such a golf cart will not interfere with the safety or efficient operation of motor vehicles on public streets. If you go through and do those things, make those findings as relates to each one of those streets, then you can put all the names in one ordinance. That doesn't create a problem.
Well, I personally can't see a road that's 25 miles an hour in the city of Poquoson that would not be safe to operate a golf cart on. So, I'd like to suggest that we get a list of them, we review them, and put that in the ordinance, name every one of them.
Let me ask a question related to that. As I read it, it says posted speed limit. Does that mean a sign has to be placed on every one of those roads if it's going to be posted? And how much does a sign cost and how much,
I think
I'm
that-
seeing it's
I
a-
think I saw the word posted in there, didn't I?
I think our streets all have a designated speed limit sign on that street. I think it's already posted.
The only
I
recollection.
also wondered why it said that, because that seemed like a strange thing.
You have to put the sign up, and I know certainly none of the streets down in Poquoson Shores have a sign that says speed limit on them.
Well, if the council determines that you want to do golf cart roads, we'll just come up with a sign. We should probably come up with a golf cart sign and incorporating the speed limit into it. I don't think that should be a barrier to what it is you want to do. Signs are not that expensive. I would suggest that if you think it's a good idea in and of itself, that the cost of signs or the need to install signs shouldn't hold you back. But I can't answer your question, Dr. Bernal, about what the sign costs. Tom may be able to give you a ballpark.
Get a general consensus, and that doesn't include the post and the labor installed. So, I mean, I can get those figures for you guys.
Typically, when I was working at Pembroke and we would bid traffic signs to be posted, it was about $75 a piece. Count the post, the labor, sign.
Sounds about right.
Well, do we generally, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, a couple of comments. Okay. Number one, since we lowered the speed limit on Rennes Road to 25 miles an hour, I've been hit with a couple of requests of why in the world did we do that? We've done nothing but slow down the traffic and impede traffic on Rennes Road. Right? To which I answered, because we had 198 signatures requesting us to do that. Right? And then I was asked, what does it take to put it back to 35 miles an hour? Right? And my answer was to get at least 200 signatures on a petition. And it turns out that those people signed that petition because neighbors brought a petition around, and they didn't want to say no and upset their neighbors, but they really didn't want it to be 25 miles an hour either, and we were not flocked with people in here saying, please, don't do it. And so we did it. Do I think it's a safe thing to do to mix golf carts and automobiles? And the answer to that is no. Okay? I don't think it's a smart thing to do. We've seen some bicycles on the highways that back traffic up, and when people are already complaining on a road that we just brought down to 25 miles an hour, and then we put golf carts on it, and we're going to slow them down a little bit more, I think we're going to make them just a little bit less happy. And so I don't think it's a good idea, but at the same time, I don't think the government should tell people what's safe for them to do and what's not safe for them to do. And I would rather have the citizens of Poquoson tell me, gee whiz, we'd love to mix golf carts with automobiles on roads that are 25 miles an hour or more. And I have not had the first phone call saying, please do that. But then again, I haven't had the first phone call saying, please don't. Okay? Is there any way this could be a referendum in the upcoming election and let the citizens of Poquoson tell us whether or not they want to do that?
Well, I agree with Bud up to the referendum part. I also have been questioned about why did we lower the speed limit and the procedures for raising it again. And also, I've not had anyone ask me about golf carts, pro or con.
In response to your question, Mr. Southall, we'd have to look at the question of whether or not you could put a ballot question. It wouldn't, I think, in a city that you're actually under our charter allowed to put questions on the ballot. That would not be the case in a county, but I think under our charter. But let us look at that if you really
I would want to look at that because I do know that there are state laws limiting advisory referendums.
Right.
I'd like to know what the citizens of Poquoson would like for us to do, Would they be really upset with these people sitting here telling them, gee whiz, you can't do it? And would they be really upset because we did do it and we had a couple of accidents because of it, people got hurt, and say, well, gee whiz, we doing golf carts on the road anyway. Yeah. But again, I don't think it's the government's decision to tell people what's safe and what's not.
I think one other thing that would require some consideration is under the limitations. Number 6 says that you can't operate a golf cart unless you have an insurance policy. And I guess the question is going to be, how are you going to know whether or not that golf cart has an insurance policy? In order for somebody to get a license on a motor vehicle, you have to show DMV that you have a insurance policy or you've gotten a waiver from the state or paid the uninsured motorist fee. But there is I guess I call it a check and a balance involved in that process to at least screen somebody in the beginning that they are properly insured. Here, while it's a requirement, I don't know exactly how you would enforce that other than just having a police officer stop and say, let me see your driver's license and let me see your insurance. I mean, which he always has a right to do. I mean, that's part of what any police officer has a right to determine when you're operating a motor vehicle on the highway. But like I say, there is some provision under state law to make sure that there's a compliance for the insurance, and there's not anything built into this other than it's simply a requirement.
Well, I have had 2 people ask me why the speed limit was lowered, and I don't consider that a large number. And I've not had anybody ask me to raise it. And, certainly not the people that were down there. And the fact that somebody told you they signed it because their neighbor sent it around, I think we hear that about every petition that we ever get.
Well, that petition, the reason we did it. That was the driver for doing it. There was no other driver for doing that. I haven't seen a petition saying, please put golf carts on the street.
Because I can tell you one thing, the people that have the golf carts think they're already legally operating them.
Yes.
And there are a lot of golf carts up and down Ren's Road.
And on Poquoson Avenue.
And other places too.
I would say for the record, there are also some people operating golf carts that know that they're operating it in violation of city ordinance and do it too.
Because they've been told.
They're not supposed to, yes. It's a mixed bag.
Do we need some sort of public announcement, either on the television channel or in newspaper, or some effort that people will at least know what the current situation is? That because I know people using them and they think that's fine.
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. Just before dark of the night, I was coming around right there, basically in front of Gordon's house, and a golf cart pulled out of one of the side driveways, and so that could be hazardous.
My suggestion is that if you determine this evening that you do not want to go forward with considering designating a road, that might be a nice time then to send a communication out to all the citizens. If you determine that you want to consider an ordinance that might potentially name every 25-mile-an-hour street, once you have considered that, that might be a good time. Or some hodgepodge in between. That it seems that we need to get on the, in my opinion, get on the other side of this process that we're in right now, so we can send out a message that doesn't then conflict with itself potentially 60 days from now, because that's just going to create more confusion for people. And I'm thinking if we really want to communicate, then we're looking at either a mailing to every household or potentially, if you were to only designate Greater Ren's Road, hypothetically, every person in Greater Ren's Road. Maybe they're the ones that get the mailing and we do the rest with our other mechanisms. But I would suggest that you just get on the other side of this process, and whatever you want to do, we will absolutely do.
Okay, what do you think, Bud? And we just go right around.
I would like to know what the citizens want to do. I don't want to be part of telling them they can't do something that's reasonable. I don't think it's a safe thing to do, but that doesn't mean that's the right decision for everybody. I wouldn't put a golf cart on the road, but I have neighbors who probably would. I'd like to know what the city wants to do with this. I want them to make that decision.
I agree with Bud in that I would like to know what more people think of golf carts, and if a referendum's the best way to go, that would be fine. If we just want to say, contact us and give us your name and we can keep a tally, I'm okay with something like that. But I'm curious to know what the majority of people think. Without knowing any of that, I'm inclined to make the law what we thought it was, which is to list all of the 25-mile-per-hour streets and go ahead and allow golf carts on those, because I'm not a big fan of the nanny state. So if somebody wants to drive a golf cart, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's their decision. I think the impediment to traffic is that it's keeping people from going faster than 25. And I'm all for that if it's a 25-mile-per-hour road. I think that's where people are getting upset, is I can't speed here because there's a golf cart in front of me. But as far as I know, golf carts go 25.
Well, somebody's never driven one. What is golf cart speed? Anybody know that?
Really depends on the golf cart.
Yeah. What kind of engine you got it?
Can they do 25?
17?
Yeah, they do.
15?
They can go faster than some of them.
They
I
go
heard.
25.
Okay.
Well, I'm for getting a list of all the 25-mile-an-hour streets and review the list and make the citizens able to do it on those streets. Referendums, I have never been a fan of. I think you are an elected official to represent the people. If you want to know what they think, get out and talk to them. I don't think we should go down the road of making every decision by referendum. We are a representative republic. We are not a democracy.
I think that the idea of getting the list of the streets and looking to see if any of them would have any particular condition that would not be conducive to golf carts would be a good idea. There may be some that even though they look like 25 miles an hour because of various conditions would not be a good idea. But I think getting the list would be a good starting point, and then trying to determine what people really do want. I'm kind of lukewarm about the referenda idea too, but I think we do need to get a good sampling of the public, let people know that if we are in fact going to vote on it, we ought to advertise very clearly a public hearing that people could attend and voice their opinions about it, because some folks really may not want to see them on the streets, and others may say it's the greatest idea in the world. So, I think we do need to get some sense of what the public opinion overall is, not just the folks that have a golf cart.
So, referendum and not a referendum and public hearing?
Okay, I'll modify that, okay? It doesn't have to be a referendum, okay? And Buddy's right, we're representative government, okay?
Right.
But two people saying, I want it, okay, is not necessarily representative of the citizens of Poquoson, okay? And so I'd like to know if they have a meeting where we can have public comment, okay? Bring it up for public comment. Fine, then we get to hear from the citizens of Poquoson and find out what they want to do without a referendum.
Can you schedule that at our next
I've had
meeting?
no input either way or the other.
We can absolutely do that at your next meeting. I do have one question for clarification. Do we want to do it, do you want public input on a draft ordinance to designate all of those roads, or do you want to simply request public input on the issue? One will lead you further down the path than the other, but not unalterably so.
I was thinking just of the issue in general, but we can ask about each specific road. I don't know what.
I probably didn't say that
Any
very
comment?
clearly, but what I meant to convey was, do you want us to prepare an ordinance which would look like the one you would adopt if you adopted it for all the roads? So that's what you're asking people to comment on? Or do you want to just give them a list of roads and say, what do you think?
Yeah, may as well do the ordinance.
Yeah, sorry.
And then we'll get public input and a couple of meetings, and then pass it or not, or bring it up for a vote the next.
I'm good with that.
Well,
Okay.
I'm wondering when's the next Island Tide due out? That might be something to include in there too, because there's a lot of people with children will read that and they may have,
Thursday.
so too late to add.
I went off on thinking of Coast and Coast, I'm sorry, Allentown. No, that's,
Is Dave still here?
Is it within a couple of months, or? If that's something maybe we could, I think advertising well is crucial to getting the public input. That's just one area we could mention it. But our standard public notice, I don't know that I feel would be sufficient for this particular issue. Of course, we can just go talking ourselves too. But I would encourage you, if we're publishing one of those magazines soon, put that in there.
If we're going to have this at your next meeting, then I'll see whether or not it lines up. Or we can have it on the other side of the tide, because I think it's going to be a while.
Yeah, we,
Our next meeting may not be till the end of August, correct?
That's correct.
right.
Yeah.
So I say it gives you a couple of months.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we ought to be able to get word out pretty good, just by our normal methods.
Right.
And we can, in addition to the newspaper ad, we can put it on our social network sites, put
Right.
it on our website.
Right.
All of the people that have contacted you might be great people to relay that to as well, because I'm sure they want to be there, but also they know people, I'm sure, that also want to be there.
Right.
And I think we understand. Let me just make sure I understand. Prepare an ordinance which lists individually each of the 25-mile-an-hour roads in the city of Poquoson. Advertise it for public comment, not for action, but for public comment at your next regularly scheduled meeting. Advertise it out there, make sure the word gets out. Then, following your input session, the council will then determine what version of that ordinance, if any, you want to take on to the next regular meeting that it could be scheduled for consideration.
That's what I understood. Is that,
Just wanted to make sure that we were doing what you wanted us to do.
Yeah.
Okay?
I would just add one other thing. I'm sure that a lot of people that are using golf carts right now have no idea what the regulations are if they were allowed to use them, you know, with all of the signage and the insurance and all that sort of thing. Somehow or another, people who are interested ought to know if you do get to use them, this is what you've got to do in order to be legally operating the vehicle.
okay, but until we designate the streets, it's illegal anyhow.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be part of the ordinance
Yeah.
that they will be commenting on.
Right.
I'm just saying people need to know that
Yes.
that's what would be required if they were going to use a golf cart, yeah.
I don't mean to prolong this, but if you were to designate a street, any street, let's pick Wren's Road, just have a street, and that's the only street you designated, we would send the regulations and requirements to every property owner on Wren's Road very shortly after your decision, so they would all know. It doesn't matter to a degree the other roads because they're not permissible unless they carry their golf cart or trailer it there. They can't be using it, and they're under the general prohibition of use, and that's a little bit more cut and dry. Which is if it's on the road, it's not legal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other comments? So we'll have a public hearing next meeting.
I have been asked by somebody on every one of those roads off of Wren's Road to please get the golf cart ordinance passed. So it would be, in the least, if we decided not to list all the 25-mile-an-hour roads, it's going to be at least Crescent Court, Wren's Road, Leslie's Drive, White House, Evans, all of those roads that feed Wren's Road.
Okay.
Randy, does this present an undue hardship
No, sir.
on you and the staff?
No, sir, not at all.
So we'll adjourn till our regular scheduled meeting.
7 o'clock?
It's right at it.
5 minutes.
All right.